Thanks for the intro, Jerry, and thank you, Vertical Events, for yet again organising opportunity for juniors to present to so many well-informed and illuminating people like you lot. A lot of familiar faces out there, and I'm very glad to be able to bring you an update on what's happening with Thundelarra. Many people will think Thundelarra historically has been a nickel play. It's been uranium, diamonds, gold, copper, and there's been some confusion over the years as to exactly where we're at. But I'm hoping the message in the last couple of years has managed to come through that we've been focusing on copper and gold, and at the moment it's probably more gold and copper. Garden Gully and Red Boar, as Jerry pointed out. Those are our two main foci at the moment. I think many of you may have seen Carl Simich's presentation at the recent Rising Stars conference, where he focused on what's happening with Sandfire at DeGrussa. And that's the reason why I've opened up with this slide. And as you can see, we are quite close to DeGrussa. You can almost throw a stone from the corner of our tenement and land it in one of their pits, if you can throw 200 metres. But this is really important to DeGrussa and really important to Sandfire. And one of the things I've said many times over the last couple of years in presentations, and in fact, late last year at September Vertical Events presentations, Jerry pointed out that I was channeling Monty Python to some degree because I was saying that Red Boar wasn't dead, it was just resting. And like the Norwegian blue of that sketch, of that very famous sketch, what's happened is it was very much the case it was not dead and just resting. Sandfire just this week, at the end of last week in discussion with us, had very much unnailed Red Boar from its perch and breathed about $1.5 million worth of life back into that dead parrot, and it's now very much an alive parrot at Red Boar, and that's the reason why we are so excited with what's been happening there. I've always said that the work that we've done at Red Boar had allowed a very good understanding of what was there and that it represented the possibility for further VMS-style deposits. As of Monday, we announced, Sandfire and us announced that we've reached an agreement where they can earn 75% of Red Boar. We currently own 90%, and our partner Bill Richmond owns 10%. He's free carried through to decision to mine. What we've structured with Sandfire is once the preemptive notice, Bill has 30 days in which to preempt this arrangement. I think it's unlikely, but I can't say anything about what he may choose or not choose to do. But Sandfire will give us $1.5 million in Sandfire shares up front. They commit to spend $1.5 million worth of exploration within 18 months at Red Boar. If they find 30,000 tonnes of contained copper, they've earned 75% in the tenement. So people, I've seen comments made already that we've given away the baby with the bathwater. We have not. I would much rather have 15% free carried. We spend no money ever on this tenement now. 15% free carried of 30,000 tonnes is, under any form of mathematics, significantly better than 90% of nothing. I would point out again, it is absolutely vital that people understand the deal we've structured with Sandfire means that Sandfire free carry us through to production, not to a decision to mine. They spend all the money, the first 1.8 million. If they find anything beyond that 1.5 million, if they find 30,000 tonnes of copper, they will continue to explore. When they discovered Monty, they put about, the deal was 15 million in 5.5 years. They spent that 15 million in less than 2 years to earn their 70% at Monty. Monty required about 35,000 metres of diamond drilling in order to outline the resource. That's well over $30 million worth of exploration spend. So $1.5 million is not a big ask, but it will make a material difference when they already have a small tenement here that they know what they're after. We've got mineralisation like 7 metres at 28% copper from near surface that's never been discovered. When you look at Conductor 5 there, that's at 600 metres vertical. From the development at 600 metres vertical to the corner of our tenement is 200 metres. So if you find anything in here, and we believe they've done, as you can see from this map, this drilling by Sandfire all the way along the boundary there, up through here, right next to the boundary there, down here. They've done a 3D seismic survey in the past over our tenement. Part of the arrangement with Sandfire is that we give them all the information we have. They assimilate that into all the data they have, and all of a sudden, rather than like a jigsaw, they've got all the outside of the jigsaw, and we've got the bit in the middle. It's a hole for them. Now we then put those two bits together, they get a much better picture of what could be there. I think the probability of this merged set of data enabling us to identify something of substance here is phenomenally high at the moment, given that we have not ever been able to explain why the mineralization we've encountered has not found a mother lode. But we've only drilled 2 deep holes. There's only one hole to 900 meters, one hole to 700 meters up in the corner. This looks phenomenally good, and I believe that in the month that it takes for the preemptive notice to expire, and then say another month after that, so that's to July and August, by late August, early September, I think it unlikely that Sandfire would not be drilling very, very heavily on this ground in order to try and identify what we all believe within Thundelarra is still a deposit there. And with their knowledge and understanding, that becomes exceptionally exciting. Red Boar is not dead. It's not even resting anymore. Life's back into it and it's ready to go. But reason why we got originally, when we put ourselves together to get the Garden Gully ground, was because we knew that Red Boar was going to have to not stop, but certainly come on hold to some degree. So our focus is gold at Garden Gully for us. Main reason we started drilling there when we were doing the deep hole at De Grussa, back at Red Boar back in May, June, July last year. We started drilling at Garden Gully. The first 29 holes were scout drilling effectively. This has not been looked at in detail in the past. There's 21,000 ounces at about 21 grams historic production from the Crown Prince tenement that we will hopefully get granted for us within the next 3 or 4 weeks. Once all the process has been finished with native title and that's all concluded, we're just waiting on the final approvals. Historically, as you can see, some of the drilling at Crown Prince has included 7 meters at 23 grams, relatively near surface, 10 meters at 13 grams. There's some other in the public domain data as well, 3 meters at 140 grams, 17 meters at 8 grams, 12 meters at 7 grams. These aren't things that I can validate at the moment because we haven't done them, but they're on open file record as having been drilled by the likes of Julia and Dominion in the 80s. So we need to follow that up because also on public domain data and public reports, they've outlined the possibility of being somewhere between 30 and 100,000 ounces of resource at Garden Gully. That alone is worth following up, particularly when we're in a location that is very, very close to existing plant, which I'll go into in a moment. The management team at Thundelarra is strong. My background is geology, plus banking and broking over the last 40 years. So I'm a geologist originally, but I've worked doing hedging and gold loans, project finance, corporate advisory, documentation on the banking sector, plus micro-cap, nano-cap analysis of resource stocks for a variety of broking firms in Perth and Melbourne over the years. So although my skill set isn't unique, it is uncommon and exceptionally valuable when you're doing a junior exploration company because I understand the drivers from a broking house or from a banking organization that sometimes are missed by boards that don't have the same set of understanding and experience of the banking processes to get an approval up and running. It also means that I understand some of the drivers about how to monetize value more quickly, and I know all this is predicated upon success, and success is predicated upon having the geological ground and the aspects of geology there and the mineralization to be able to find it in the first place. So we think we've got a good track record of being able to identify opportunities that ultimately translate, and that's proven by the history of success within the group. And a lot of this is at Phil Crabb, our chairman's feet, because he's been in the industry for 50, 55 years now, and he discovered the original Yilgarn Star mine in the 80s. That went on from discovery through finance, construction, development, production, and ultimately taken over, produced 1.4 million ounces. He also put together the ground that became the Plutonic gold mine, which produced 5.4 million ounces. That was taken over by Great Central. UMC, he spun UKD out of Thundelarra back in the early 2000s, and that became UMC, which was sold for $1.30 a share to BHP after they found the Iron Valley deposit. Copernicus Nickel, that went into Panoramic. And the Thunderball uranium we sold a couple of years ago after the market collapsed, but that was getting 23% uranium grades. So we have a track record of discovery, and we believe that our capabilities within this field mean that we can do either take something through a discovery through into production, or we can monetize value by selling it to another party, if that makes sense. When you're in a junior explorer, you want them exploring. In the past, as an investor, if I've come across a company that I've been in that has said, oh, times are going bad, we're going to sit on our cash and batten down the hatches and ride out this downturn, I'm on the screens to sell that within minutes, because if a junior is not exploring, you can't get a discovery, so you won't get a return on your shares. All you'll see is a gradual drain of cash as the money goes into overheads and admin. You've got to explore. The last 20 quarters since I joined Thundelarra in April 2012, we spend on average $1 million a quarter, of which at least 2/3, normally 3/4 of that goes in the ground every quarter. We are exploring. We are absolutely adamant that that's the only way to play the exploration game. As I say, we're now looking at Garden Gully shaping up as a major new discovery, and again, to demonstrate we've been drilling. We started in May last year. We've done 13, almost 14,000 metres of RC there and close to 800 metres of diamond, and that's on what were 11 prospects that we identified originally. So we had 2 million cash at the end of March, and as I say, we burned about $1 million a quarter, so work out from that whatever you want. Garden Gully, as I say, this thing is within 30 kilometres of 2 existing plants. Part of the reason we liked it so much is because of the infrastructure. It's next to Meekatharra, that's produced over 7 million ounces of gold historically from a number of mines in Archean, traditional Archean greenstone belt settings. And we have 2 plants on the Great Northern Highway, which runs from the Wyndham, the northernmost port in Western Australia, right through the iron ore countries down to Perth. That major road artery, sealed artery, and Meekatharra also hosts the overflow airport for Perth, so it's got amazing capacity for infrastructure demand, to meet all the infrastructure demands. 2 plants within 30k of Garden Gully, the Andy Well 350, 400,000 tonne plant to the north of us, and West Gold's Bluebird, which is 3.1 million tonnes and about the same distance down the road to the south. So if we find anything, we have the options of monetising through standalone development or through toll treatment or through constructing a ring-fenced package of a particular resource and selling it to one of those 2 parties. When you've got 2 parties competing, that's always the benefit of the company who has the resource. And beyond that as well, I think that one of the things we really like is because we're so close to infrastructure, the examples of a Tropicana or a Gruyere where they've had to get up to sort of 1.5, 2 million ounces to have sufficient scale to be able to develop, make the decision to mine, we don't have to do that because we have all the other options. And we can still, if we so chose, if we found something big enough, we could develop it as a standalone operation as well. Spectacular results from Garden Gully today. As I say, there was original last July, we got this near surface supergene gold in the free gold in the chips, 7 metres at 24. You can see here, and the easiest thing to do is I'm not going to try and go through all the details, but the essence here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different locations in there that have got material that suggests we've got a major mineralised system, but the main one is Lydia, without a shadow of a doubt, and that's new because it hasn't been looked at before. Part of the reason is that there is a depleted zone in the rocks below surface, so from about 10, 20 metres down to 70 or 80 base of oxidation, you may find a lot of the gold or mineralisation has been leached out, and so you get very low anomalous grades, but are not representing what may be underneath. Also, soil cover. Traditional soil sampling approach that a lot of explorers take to discovery, this is transported cover, which is like having a blanket on your bed, and you can see where your partner is under the bed. The whole thing's been slid across, and you think you're over on top of them on that side, but in fact they're somewhere else, because all the anomaly has been moved with the transported soil on top. You find the anomaly on the top, you sit there and drill it there, and it's actually not on top of the mineralisation that caused it because it's been moved. And in the past, people have drilled those anomalies, the soil anomalies are there, they've drilled them, hit the depleted zone, like Julia did in the 80s, and assumed there's nothing there. What we're showing now is that you need to go deeper, and we're the first to drill to any depth at this deposit. And when I look at some of these results, what we're showing here is mineralisation from near surface, like that there. You're seeing 11 metres, 7 metres 24, so supergene gold, so all the nuggety gold near surface. As you get deeper, you're getting other intersections from 70 metres, 37 metres at almost 2 grams, including 12 at 4. And then this thing, 80 at 1.9, that's a mine. 80 metres at 1.9, if you can prove consistency, is a mine, but that is not likely to be its true width. It's almost like we've drilled not straight down the guts of a chute, but sort of sub-parallel to a chute. So what's the true width? We're not sure. It's beginning to indicate from the most recent work that something like 30 metres is the width of the zone that is showing this mineralisation. But 80 metres at 2 grams, normally what you look at when you get something like that is you multiply the 80 by 1.9 and you get 152. And then you see that it says including, and it might say 5 metres at 30. So you go 5 times 30 is 150. So out of the 80 metres at 2, all of it, 150 gram metres of the 152, is in the 5 metres. Not the case here. This is mineralised throughout the 80 metres. There was only 3 samples, I think, which were less than half a gram, or 0.5 of a gram, just less than half a gram in there. It was about 10 samples, less than half a gram. But the balance, the highest grade individual was 13.4. This is significant, particularly when it's the second phase of drilling that's been done here. As you get deeper, you're getting some of these like this, 15 meters at 1.6 from 243. That's taking you down to 260. So what we're seeing is mineralization within the Lydia system. And the most recent drilling that we've just announced yesterday, this is hard to read, but by all means come and grab a copy of the presentation from the booth. We're getting mineralization over this whole length. We're now identified with that down to here and then the offset here, about 500 meters of strike length, still open along strike and at depth. So what we've got here, what could this be? What could Lydia turn out to be? It's thumbsuck, and I have no reason, or I can't validate this yet, but it's what we're doing for the next stage of work. If you had 500 meters of strike, let's call it 250 meters of strike, because that's where some of the most interesting core components are. We've got mineralization proven in zones down to 240. Let's call that 200, so 250 by 200. We've got intervals 80 meters wide. Well, let's call that 30, just as a thumbsuck at the moment. Specific gravity is 2.7 tons per cubic meter. Trust me on the maths and do it yourself, but what I've said there, 250 by 200 by 30 by 2.7 is 4 million tons. If the average grade is 1.5 grams, at 1.5 grams, that's 200,000 ounces. At 2 grams, it's 260,000 ounces. At 3 grams, it's 390. So what we've got here is a target that is significant. We don't know how big it'll be yet, but that's what exploration's about. You want to know you've got something you're after, something that's exciting, and that's what you want to do. The next phase for us now is to take Lydia through to the resource definition stage. That's what we're aiming to do in the next few months. So once we get ourselves in this situation, we follow up here. We also have further to the east here, the Crown Prince, which I just mentioned with the high grades that have come out of Crown Prince. And when that comes on board, we know that extends into Crown and through to Battery. That's another system in there that we need to follow up in more detail. We need to do the work there. And certainly down at Transylvania, we're seeing evidence that that is mirroring the style of a Lydia there. So a bucket load of work. And as I say, Gold Road's taken 11 years to reach the stage it's reached now. Fantastic outcome. We're just about a year into this, and we're finding results that are really exciting for what we want to do and consistent. Red Boar I've been through, and I've got a couple of minutes left, but really what it's coming down to, we have some other deposits as well, other areas that we'll look at, but the main focus for us in the last few years has been Red Boar. We've got Garden Gully in strategically for very good reason, just in case Red Boar gave us good technical results, but not things that fired the market up enough. Garden Gully came in, so that was the backup position. That's now coming good. We've now struck a deal with Sandfire. So what happens in the next 3 or 4 months? Why should people buy Thundelarra shares when they're sitting at 4.7, 4.8 cents? Because at the moment, we've got a whole lot of work coming up. We've got more results still to come up from the last work that we did at Battery. We've got a couple of results still due out of Lydia. We've got the drilling program that will come out of, hopefully for resource definition before the next few months at Lydia. Then we've got Crown Prince will come on board, so we'll do further work at Crown Prince. That's got targets of 30 to 100,000 ounces have been announced previously. We don't know if that's true or not yet. We have to validate that. But you don't get that sort of outcome and those sort of intersections without there being something there that we need to validate. Then we do the further work at Battery as well. We'll do the follow-up there. Plus you've got all that's happening at Red Boar, which now we don't have to spend a cent on. Sandfire within August, September time will be drilling, we believe, drilling the hell out of Red Boar. If they find something there, you look at what happened with the Monty discovery. When that was discovered, Talisman had sold 30% contributing interest. The market is still working out exactly what this means for us to have a potentially 15% non-contributing interest. And I say we still hold 90% until such time as they prove 30,000 tons of copper. So if they find a few major intersections and yet haven't proved up a resource, we still got 90% of that and we don't have to spend a cent on it. So there's a whole load of price parameters and price catalysts over the next few months that lead towards the possibility of Thundelarra demonstrating a significant return to shareholders at this level. I know there are a lot of people who've held stock for a long while in the past, and like everybody, you get tired of positions when you've had 5 years of downturn and you haven't had a major discovery. Well, that's life for 99% of all exploration companies, but you want them to be continuing to drilling all the time, continually aware of how to save cash, We've sold all the assets that are non-core to us and tried to generate cash for them. We've reduced all the joint ventures. So all our focus is on delivering money for shareholders. We all hold stock in the company. Our objectives of desire are aligned with all of yours, and that's money we've spent on buying those shares. And that is my time. Thank you all very much.